I would just say, like, early on in my transition, when people would use my pronouns, we describe it as kind of this notion of gender euphoria, where you just kind of feel like this wave of like positive energy and vibes like just wash over you from being seen and somebody respecting you, that maybe you haven't had before.
Unfortunately, I think particularly in like some religious spaces, like church, for example, like particularly before I had top surgery, when people would kind of look at your body and assume that that's your gender, right? That was kind of a really hard space for me. Or when people would say things like, oh, well, God created you to be a particular way, you can't change that. And it's not that I'm changing anything, it's that I'm just being who I am.
So I picked my pronouns because it was the easiest set that were not he and she. For me, gender is something that was kind of an afterthought. Like growing up, I knew I was not a girl. I tried to be a boy. That did not fit at all. And so I just kind of landed on they, them pronouns. I feel like they're the most common pronoun set other than he and she, so I don't really have to teach anyone anything. If anything, I'm like, just talk about me as if I'm two people, right? And so that's an easy way to get people who are not used to thinking about pronouns to use them correctly.
I use all pronouns mainly because I work with kids and because they're so young, I want to be accessible to them, to teach them. And then also because I do drag as a drag king. So I kind of actually take it as a compliment if people say he, even when I'm not in drag, because I'm like, oh, thank you. But I just like them all for different reasons, but all just in general.
That's such a deep question. I think it's a couple of things, right? I always think about what it means to treat people how they want to be treated, how we show that we care for other people. And I think that all of that foundationally goes back to the way that we respect one another and are kind to one another. And it might not seem like a big thing to most people because everyone has pronouns, everyone uses pronouns. But when you are trans or non-binary or any flavor of gender diverse, and using the pronoun that somebody wants you to use really makes a significant difference in terms of how that person feels seen and connected and respected by you in your interactions with that person.
When someone's just treating you how you've felt about yourself your whole life and just being happy it's so nice.
It means everything. I think sometimes we forget that literally using the right pronoun for someone is life-saving. Right? Being able to call someone by the name that they may have chosen for themselves that honors who they are is super important. Being able to use the correct pronoun for someone is, like, we forget how much energy it really takes for someone to even disclose what pronoun that they use, right? So for someone to honor that, again, is really life-changing and life-saving.
It's a matter of being respectful of who I am and how I want to present to the world, and to respect my pronouns is to respect my identity.
To me, if I was in the 101 class, I think to understand the history of what, especially for seniors like myself, to understand what they have been through over time is extremely important, and it will make them more supportive.
For people who often have to navigate really tough journeys, like whether it be mentally, physically, or even in our social circles when it comes to our families who may not fully respect and honor us.
I guess the only thing that I want to say is thank you to everyone who's taking the class. I think it's great that you're wanting to learn more. And I would like to say thank you to LGBTQ+ Lorain County for existing.
One cannot ever undermine how important it is to have community and to have allies who are comfortable.
I've heard something on Facebook saying, you know, be careful who you hate because it could be someone you love.
it's hard to open up in general. And I think the more that social media has gotten bigger, people feel more comfortable because they can find other people like themselves, as opposed to before we had social media. And, you know, unless if you were in school or high school, unless someone else was like open, you really didn't know if it was a safe place to open up.
Things are changing, and that if we're really to be free, people need to be able to express their identity the way they feel about themselves.
I mean, certainly it's easier to come out now, but I don't. So I guess that would explain why maybe more individuals feel comfortable coming out.
It's not a question of they just appeared. We are now choosing to see you.
LGBTQI plus people have always been here.
Identify resources that you can turn to that are going to help you do this.
Your label doesn't necessarily define you, and you don't have to be in a label.
The path has been laid before you, and you owe it to yourself to make it through. And you will be so much stronger. Because the world deserves you, and you deserve the world.
I would say whatever support you can find, latch onto it when you decide to come out. Groups like our Lorain group, for example,